Please subscribe and like the video before continuing. At 67, the tragedy of Alan Jackson is beyond heartbreaking. Country music fans across the world are heartbroken as they come to terms with the painful reality surrounding one of the genre's most iconic voices, Alan Jackson. At 67, the legendary singer whose timeless hits have defined decades of country storytelling is facing a series of personal and health battles that have left fans devastated and deeply concerned. Known for his classic Southern drawl, heartfelt lyrics, and humble personality, Jackson has been a pillar of country music for over 40 years. But behind that warm smile and down-to-earth charm lies a story of struggle, heartbreak, and resilience that few could have imagined. The tragedy of Alan Jackson isn't just about fading health. It's about the painful cost of fame, the toll of time, and the emotional scars that never fully heal. Alan Jackson's journey began with nothing but a dream and a guitar. Born in Noonan, Georgia in 1958, he grew up in a modest household where music was both a comfort and an escape. Inspired by gospel tunes and the legends of traditional country like Hank Williams and George Jones, Jackson learned early on that music could capture both joy and sorrow. When he moved to Nashville with his wife Denise, he was chasing a dream that seemed impossible. They lived humbly, struggling to make ends meet while Jackson played anywhere that would have him. But his persistence paid off, and in 1989, he released his debut album, Here in the Real World. It wasn't long before Alan's honest lyrics and traditional sound redefined country music, giving fans a much-needed reminder of its roots in a time when the genre was shifting toward pop. Hits like Chattahoochee, Remember When, Gone Country, and It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere made him a household name, earning him countless awards and recognition. Yet, behind the fame, Alan was still the same small-town boy with a deep faith and a quiet sense of humility. That humble spirit, however, would be tested in ways he never expected. Over the past few years, Alan Jackson's health has been in sharp decline, and in 2021, he revealed to the world that he had been battling Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, a degenerative nerve condition that affects balance and muscle strength. The disease, which has no cure, slowly weakens the body, making walking and performing increasingly difficult. For a man whose life revolved around the stage and connecting with fans, the diagnosis was devastating. When Jackson shared the news in a tearful interview, his words broke hearts. "I've been living with it for years, and it's getting more and more obvious. I just wanted people to know." Fans immediately flooded social media with prayers and support, but the reality was heartbreaking. Alan Jackson was facing a battle that even fame and fortune couldn't fix. Watching him perform became a bittersweet experience. The same man who once commanded stages with effortless charm now struggled to stand, gripping the microphone stand for support. Yet, he kept performing, not out of obligation but out of love. "It's been a part of my life for so long," he said. "I just can't imagine not singing." Those who attended his final tour, Last Call, One More for the Road, described the shows as emotional farewells. Each performance felt like a goodbye, with fans wiping tears as he sang songs that had shaped their lives. Behind the lights and applause, his wife Denise was often seen backstage, supporting him as she always had. Their love story, spanning more than 4 decades, has weathered storms that would have broken many. In the 1990s, their marriage nearly fell apart due to Alan's infidelity and the overwhelming pressures of fame. Denise later revealed in her memoir that she forgave him, crediting their faith and counseling for saving their marriage. Over time, they rebuilt their "Please subscribe and like the video before continuing" relationship, and Alan admitted publicly that losing her would have been the biggest regret of his life. But tragedy struck again when Denise was diagnosed with colorectal cancer in 2010. For the first time, Alan wasn't the one on stage. He was the one sitting in hospital rooms, holding her hand, praying for her recovery. Thankfully, after months of treatment, Denise beat the cancer, but the experience changed both of them. They began focusing more on family, faith, and gratitude. Yet even with their renewed outlook, life continued to throw challenges their way. As Alan's health worsened, his ability to tour became limited. He canceled several performances due to his condition, which only deepened fans' fears. Each missed concert sparked concern that it might be the end of an era. For a man whose songs were often about living simply and appreciating life's fleeting moments, this chapter felt cruelly ironic. Alan Jackson has always worn his heart on his sleeve, often channeling his deepest emotions into his music. Songs like Remember When and Drive for Daddy Jean weren't just hits, they were autobiographical love letters to the people and places that shaped him. But in recent years, his music has taken on an even more haunting tone. His song Where Have You Gone feels almost like a farewell to traditional country, and perhaps in some ways a reflection of his own fading strength. In it, he laments the loss of authenticity and roots in a changing industry, a message that resonates deeply with fans who feel the same about his absence. Despite his physical limitations, Alan has continued to record and write when he can, saying, "I'm not done yet. I just might not be on stage as much." Those words gave hope to millions of fans who weren't ready to say goodbye. But even so, the emotional toll of his health battle has been evident. Friends and collaborators have spoken about how difficult it's been to watch him struggle, noting that he remains strong and optimistic, but that it's been heartbreaking to see him robbed of his physical freedom. The tragedy of Alan Jackson is more than his illness. It's the cruel reality that someone who gave so much joy to others is now facing such a painful personal battle. It's also about time, the relentless passage that has turned one of country's brightest lights into a man forced to face his own mortality. Yet through it all, Alan remains a symbol of courage. His faith continues to be his anchor. "God's been good to me," he once said. "Even when I've been down, I've always known he had a plan." That unshakable faith has inspired countless fans who see in him not just a country singer, but a man of deep integrity and heart. As Alan Jackson turned 67, his legacy in music remains unshakable. He's sold over 75 million records, won 2 Grammy Awards, and been inducted into both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. But perhaps his greatest achievement is the emotional honesty he's brought to his art. In every lyric there's a piece of his soul, a reflection of love, loss, faith, and resilience. While his body may be slowing down, his spirit continues to shine as brightly as ever. The future remains uncertain. His disease is progressive, and though Alan has accepted his limitations, fans continue to hold out hope for more music, more moments, and more memories. For those who grew up on his songs, Alan Jackson represents a time when country music told the truth about life, love, and heartbreak. His story reminds us that even our heroes are human, that behind the fame and the applause lies vulnerability and pain. But it also reminds us that strength doesn't come from avoiding hardship. It comes from facing it with grace. As he steps away from the spotlight, Alan Jackson leaves behind not just a catalog of hits but a lifetime of lessons. Please subscribe and like the video before continuing. Journey is a reminder that even in tragedy, there can be beauty. Even in decline there can be dignity. And even when the music fades, the melody of a good man's life continues to echo in the hearts of those he's touched. Alan Jackson's story is not over, but it's one that will be remembered forever, not for the tragedy that surrounds him, but for the hope, faith, and love that have always defined him. At 67, the tragedy of Alan Jackson is beyond heartbreaking. The heartbreaking reality surrounding Alan Jackson at 67 is leaving millions of fans in tears. Once the strong, commanding voice behind some of country music's greatest anthems, Jackson now faces one of the toughest battles of his life. Known for his authenticity, charm, and emotional storytelling, Alan's music has been the soundtrack to love, heartbreak, and nostalgia for generations. But behind the scenes, this country legend has been quietly fighting a deeply painful struggle that goes far beyond the stage lights. His story is one of courage, love, and loss, and it reminds us all that even the brightest stars are not immune to the cruelty of time. For over 4 decades, Alan Jackson stood as the soul of country music. His songs weren't just hits, they were honest reflections of the everyday lives of working-class Americans. Tracks like Remember When, Drive, Chattahoochee, and Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning captured the human experience in a way few artists could. He built his career on sincerity and faith, never chasing trends or fame, but instead staying true to the roots of real country. But now the man who once sang of life's simple joys is facing an unthinkable challenge, a progressive illness that has slowly stripped away his mobility and independence. When Alan Jackson publicly revealed his battle with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, fans were devastated. The disorder, which affects the peripheral nerves, leads to muscle weakness, loss of balance, and difficulty walking. Over time, it makes even the simplest physical tasks painful and exhausting. For someone who spent a lifetime on stage, moving freely, strumming his guitar, and connecting with fans, the diagnosis felt like a cruel twist of fate. "I've been dealing with it for years," Alan admitted, "and it's getting more and more obvious." The confession came with a mix of vulnerability and courage, the same authenticity that's always defined him. His revelation made headlines around the world, as fans began to understand why he'd been moving more slowly in recent performances. Watching a man who once embodied strength now struggle to stand was almost too much to bear. During his Last Call tour, Alan's appearances became emotionally charged farewells. He leaned on microphone stands, occasionally sat mid-performance, but his voice remained as soulful as ever. The crowd would rise to their feet, singing every word as tears filled the room. It was more than a concert. It was a living tribute to a man whose songs had shaped countless lives. Yet even as his health declined, Alan continued to show gratitude to his fans. "I just love the music," he said softly in one interview. "I can't imagine not singing." His words reflected both his love for his craft and his pain at knowing that his body might soon force him to stop. But health is not the only tragedy in Alan's story. Behind the fame lies decades of personal trials, heartache, faith tests, and family struggles that have shaped the man behind the legend. His love story with his wife, Denise, is one of country music's most inspiring and most tested romances. They met. Please subscribe and like the video before continuing. As teenagers in Georgia, married young, and faced the turbulence of fame together. Denise supported Alan when he was a struggling musician trying to break into Nashville. She believed in him long before the world did. But the pressures of success nearly tore them apart. In the late 1990s, Alan's career was skyrocketing, but his marriage was falling apart. He admitted to having strayed, and the couple separated for several months. Denise, heartbroken but determined, leaned on her faith for strength. Eventually, they reconciled, crediting prayer and counseling for saving their marriage. Alan later said the experience changed him forever. "It made me realize what I could have lost. My wife, my family, that's what really matters." Their bond was tested yet again when Denise was diagnosed with colorectal cancer in 2010. For months, Alan became her caregiver, staying by her side through every painful treatment. Miraculously, she survived. The experience brought them closer, reinforcing the vows they made decades ago. "We learn to appreciate every day," Denise said later. "You don't take anything for granted." But as Denise recovered, Alan's health began to decline. He began experiencing numbness, weakness, and difficulty standing for long periods. Doctors eventually diagnosed the hereditary nerve disease that would change his life forever. Even as his condition worsened, Alan tried to keep performing. He canceled shows reluctantly, apologizing to fans each time. "I never want to disappoint anyone," he said. His humility only made fans love him more. Over the past few years, as his public appearances have become rarer, fans have expressed concern that his performing days might be over. Rumors of his retirement swirled, and while Alan hasn't officially said goodbye, it's clear that his days on stage are numbered. "I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do it," he admitted tearfully in an interview. "But I want to keep singing as long as I can." It's not just his physical health that weighs on fans, it's the emotional toll. The sight of Alan Jackson, a man once full of energy and joy, now slowed by illness, is profoundly sad. But true to his nature, Alan hasn't let his condition define him. Instead, he's chosen to live with gratitude. He spends more time with his family, his daughters, and his grandchildren, often retreating to his home in Tennessee for peace and privacy. Music still fills the air there. He writes occasionally, plays guitar when he can, and remains deeply connected to his roots. "I've been blessed," he said. "I've had a wonderful career and a beautiful family. I can't complain." Still, fans can't help but feel a deep sadness. They know they are witnessing the slow fading of an era. Alan Jackson's voice, smooth, steady, and full of heart, has defined generations. His songs told our stories, celebrated our memories, and gave words to our pain. Losing that voice, even gradually, feels like losing a piece of country music itself. But what makes Alan's story truly tragic is also what makes it beautiful: his resilience. Even in his struggles, he continues to inspire. His life is a living lesson in grace, faith, and humility. He's shown the world that it's possible to